Today we are going to look over the angles review that was given to you last week on either Thursday or Friday. So this first section is about finding the missing angle given a triangle. So the first thing we must remember is that triangles, the interior angles, which interior means the inside angles of a triangle, all add up to 180 degrees. And we talked about this as angle 1 plus angle 2 plus angle 3 equals 180. So now let's look at these first three problems. And on the test, you're going to have to write an equation for at least one problem that is similar to this. So for this equation, I could say that 80 plus 39 plus x equals 180 degrees. Then I add the two common like terms. 80 plus 39 is 119 plus x equals 180. And then I subtract 119 from both sides. These will cancel out to make 0. And then I will have 61 degrees left over. And do not forget to label. This little symbol is very important because we are talking about angles. So on this next one, we have to remember what this little box means. That little box plays an important role. It means that this is a 90-degree angle. So this means this equation could be 90 plus 35 plus x equals 180. Once again, if I combine like terms, 90 plus 35 is 125 plus x equals 180. I subtract 125 from both sides. Cancels out. You have x equals 5. You make that a 10. 7 minus 2 is 5, so this is 55 degrees. And then we have one last one. We have 60 plus 50 plus x equals 180. Oh, barely got it in there. 60 plus 50 gives me 110 plus x equals 180. And then if I subtract 110 from both sides, cancel this out, I'll have x equals 70 degrees. And that is how you find the missing interior angle of a triangle. So we have two more interior angles to find. This angle right here is actually 105 degrees. It's hard to see in this image. So I have 105 plus 40 degrees plus x would equal to 180 degrees. If I add my like terms, 145 plus x equals 180. Then subtract 145 from both sides. We have x equals 10, borrow, make that a 7, so 35 degrees. And then we have one last one. We have x plus 30 plus 25. Remember with addition, the order does not play a role. It can be in any order. And so x, so I need to combine my like terms. I can't add x, so I have x, 30 plus 25 is 55, equals 180. And then subtract 55 equals 180. These cancel, and I have x equals, whoops, let's back up for a second there. I forgot to subtract 55 from this side to keep it balanced. So x would equal, borrow, make this 10, this 7, make this 125 degrees. Things to remember is to look. Would this make sense for this angle to be 125 degrees? Yes, because it's an obtuse angle. So that makes sense for that to be 125 degrees. Does this make sense for this to be 35 degrees? Yes, because if I have one obtuse, my other two angles must be acute. When we were creating triangles, we discovered that the angles are the ones that are creating the actual sides of the triangle, and also that the sides play a role in determining which angles are the largest and smallest. So we discussed that the largest angle is across from the largest side, and the smallest angle is across from the smallest side. So if I look at this first one, my largest side is 7. So I look at what angle is across from it. That would be angle R. Now I look at my smallest, which is 4, which is created by that angle, which is angle P, because those angles are the ones creating the sides. So if we look at this next one, my largest angle would be across from 9, because that is the largest side, which is angle T. And then 5 inches is the smaller side, so it's across from angle S. And then the largest angle in this one is across from 15, so that would have to be angle K. And the smallest is across from 11, which is at angle J. Now we are going to look at how we can identify the longest side and the shortest side using the angles. The same way we did in the last one, but this time they have given us the angles. So if we're looking for the longest side, we need to know where the largest angle is. So V, in this case, is the largest angle, and it is across from this side. So we would say that UW is going to be the longest side. Then I look at where is my smallest angle. That would be W, and it is across from UV. And you kind of notice that the two letters that are in the name are always not the angle. So in this next one, the largest angle is 95 degrees, which is Q, is across from the longest side, which is PR. And then the smallest angle, which is 35, which is R, is across from the shortest side, which in this case will be PQ. Now if we look at this next one, our largest angle is 135 degrees, which is S. So that is line RT is the longest side. And my smallest tiny angle is 15 degrees, which is across from line ST, which is the smallest or shortest side. We learned in class about the triangle inequality theorem by creating triangles to determine could this create a triangle, yes or no. And we learned that the two shortest sides, so we're just going to call those side 1 and plus side 2, or famously known as A and B in Pythagorean theorem, must be greater than the longest side, which we're going to call side 3. And in this case, if we were talking about Pythagorean theorem, it would be side C. And this must be true every time. So they're wanting to know if these triangles are true triangles or if they could not work. So if I look at my two smallest, 4 plus 2, that only gives me 6, where this is 7. So that means this is not a triangle. Then if I look at this next one, I have 6 and 5 as my two smallest sides. 6 plus 5 equals 11. It is bigger. 11 is greater than 9, so it is a triangle. This next one, we have 5 and 3. 8 is smaller than 9, so no, it's not a triangle. This one did not work either. This time we're looking at just given measurements, could these measurements actually make a triangle? Same thing, you look at your two smallest, 5 plus 12 gives me 17. 17 is greater than 15, so yes, it works. This next one we have 3.8 plus 2.1. Notice they're not always in order, so double check that you picked the two smallest. That gives me 5.9, so 5.9 is greater, or 5 and 9/10 I should say. 5 and 9/10 is greater than 5, so yes, this makes a triangle. Last one that I have is 3 feet plus the 5 and 5/10 of a foot. That gives me 8 and 5/10, or 8.5. 8.5 is equal to 8.5, so this also cannot make a triangle. It has to be greater. Now let's take a look at complementary and supplementary angles. Remember I made the joke that in complementary angles, you think of giving someone a compliment as doing the right thing, and a right angle is 90 degrees. So the first two are complementary angles. So that means they must add up to 90. So if I wrote an equation for these, I could say that 31 plus b is equal to 90 degrees. And then I would just subtract 31 from both sides to solve this, because 31 minus 31 gives me 0, so I'm left with b. 90 minus 31, this gives me, make that 10, brings 9, this changes to an 8, so b must be 59 degrees. So in this next one, similar, write an equation again, is still complementary angle. 65 plus a equals 90 degrees. Subtract 65 from both sides. 65 minus 65 is 0, so I'm left with a. 10, make that an 8, so this becomes 5. 8 minus 6, 2, so 25 degrees. And once again, remember, you can always check your answers by putting the two numbers. That's 65 plus 25, check, that makes 90. 31 plus 59, does that make 90? Check, yes it does. Okay, on the next two, we have supplementary angles, which means they equal 180. We talked about in class how one way you can see this is that if I connect from one side of the straight line to the other side, it makes a half circle. So for this first one, I'm actually going to write above it since I'm running out of room. 92 plus a equals 180. Subtract 92 from both sides. So a would give me, so this becomes a 7, so 17 minus 9 would also be an 8. So this would be 88 degrees, and I actually did label. Good. Thought I forgot. So and on the last one, we have a plus 28 equals 180. Subtract 28, subtract 28. These cancel out. Make this a 10, borrow, make that a 7. 10 minus 8 is 2. 17 minus 2 is 152 degrees. And if you think about it, this would have to be an obtuse angle. So 152 degrees does make sense. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question. In the diagram below of triangle ABC, D is a point on line AB. AC is equal to 7 and AD is equal to 6 and BC is equal to 18. So if we were looking at this, we know that AB would have to be the longest side because angle C is the biggest angle. So I know that if I add the two smaller sides, 7 plus 18 equals 25, that line AB would have to be less than 25. So if I'm looking at this, I know it cannot be A because 5 plus 6 would give me 11 and would not be the longest side. So it cannot be A. Okay, 6 plus 12 gives me 18, which is less than 25, so that is an option. 19 plus 6 gives me 25, but it cannot be equal to 25. It has to be less than, and we know it can't be 25, so B is the only possible answer. But I know many of you are thinking, well, if it's an isosceles triangle, then two angles must be the same. But the thing is, what could it be? Not what is it. So 12 could be the only possible answer in this one. Let's take a look at the last multiple choice question. In a scalene triangle ABC, measure of angle B is 45, measure of angle C is 55. What is the order of the sides in length from longest to shortest? Well, they didn't give you a picture. And we talked about this in class, that when they don't give you an image to look at, draw one. Because images are so vital in math. They help us comprehend what we're thinking about the problem. And then label that triangle. And remember, we talked about how it's okay if we end up messing up our triangle and the sides don't really match up. So they said 45 degrees for angle B and 55 for angle C. So then I have to figure out, well, what would angle A be? So if I did 45 plus 55 plus x equals 180. So 45 plus 55 would give me exactly 100 plus x equals 180. Most of you can see that x would have to equal 180. Well, sorry, would equal 80, not 180. So x is 80. So then I look at what is the order of the sides from longest to shortest. And remember we talked about the longest side is always across from the biggest angle. So 80 is the biggest angle, which is across from side BC. So that means I can automatically mark out A and I can mark out C. Okay, then I have to look at the next. 55 degrees is my next biggest side. So after BC should be AB. And D is the only possible answer for this one. Our test on angles and triangles will be on Tuesday this week. We will review in class tomorrow. Come with any questions, maybe something you're not sure about. And I'll leave you with this funny joke.